I wouldn't really expect many jokes from me with this chapter, to be honest. Unlike usual, I think this is going to be more of a deep dive over-analysis of the chapter itself rather than a recap. Obviously, we will go through what actually happens, but I think this is easily one of Kagurabachi's most analyzable and kind of tightly packed chapter. So the first thing I actually want to clear up straight off the bat is that one criticism that, not a lot of people to be fair, but one criticism some people have of this chapter is the fact that it was kind of all given to us at once rather than, you know, giving the setup for Kunishige's mum, Kunishige's dad, kind of what was going on behind the scenes and leading up to the events that took place in this chapter. I honestly couldn't disagree more. I think, especially as a weekly experience, sure, it might play out differently on a batch read, but in a weekly experience, after going on break for a month and then coming back with something that hits as hard as this was extremely effective. And I think just having it appear out of nowhere and just happen is kind of what makes it hit as hard as it does. Whereas when you do a setup for something like this, you know, if we go back to Kunishige being a child, 9 years old, whatever, and we get introduced to his parents and we see kind of what his home situation's like, it becomes a sort of, oh, I see where this is going. And it's still sad, but it doesn't have the raw emotional impact that I think Hokuzono was hoping to achieve by just dropping it, like, immediately, all in one chapter. And I think it's not the main focus either. Like, this isn't about Kunishige's mum, this isn't about Kunishige's dad. It's not about them as people, it's about the effect they have on Kunishige, and then the effect Chiaki and Chihiro in turn have on him, and the effect he will then go on to have on the world. It's about the events and where they all started for Kunishige, rather than actually, you know, connecting to his family. It's not about that. There doesn't need to be set up for that. I don't care that we don't have a name for either of his parents, that we don't really see either of their faces, because it's not about them as individuals, right? A very important part of this chapter is just how it just happens, right? And again, in this chapter, it's kind of proven that Hokuzono really is just I was gonna say jack of all trades, but at this point he's a master of all trades. I don't even know. Like, he's writing an incredible battle shonen series, which many people have done before, and not many of them have landed the romance side. You know, they all land the tragic backstory side, more or less. You know, I'm thinking Kishimoto of Naruto and such. Like, this honestly reminded me more of like a Chainsaw Man or Dandadan chapter. It's been handled really, really well, and I think the conclusion is a very happy, sad kind of wrap up to the chapter. It did make everyone tear up, I'm pretty sure, but it ends on a happy, sad note, you know? Whereas it just starts off really depressing with, obviously, we learned that Kunishige's dad was very abusive towards him and his mum, to the point where his mum's like nearly lost sight in both eyes because of the beatings. Kunishige has a lot of marks too, and there's some really cool symbolism and imagery in general in this chapter, but also of just the bandages on Kunishige's face being a lot like Chihiro's scar. He does look a lot like Chihiro. Yeah, and then of course we learned that his dad was killed by a customer who he had a falling out with. Who this might be, it might not be important at all. My chat suggested maybe Itzo Shirokai. There's something there, I think, but overall I think it probably doesn't matter. And then we see that basically Chihiro and his mom have to come to terms with the fact that he's gone now. He's gone from their lives. This isn't going to be a problem for them anymore. But obviously a massive part of this chapter is PTSD. From both his mum and Kunishige himself, right? So despite him being gone, their lives have been so dramatically impacted by this that his mum just can't take it. So when Kunishige, you know, with his eyes especially, gradually becomes more and more like his dad in appearance, especially because of those Rokuhiro eyes, his mum just eventually snaps. Seeing the cans in this page here makes me think there's an implication that she picks up drinking as well. I wasn't really sure whether that's what it was trying to show or not, because there is a lot of panels like that showing the elements that kind of manifested in Kunishige's PTSD. So you see the beer cans, you see the food spilled, you see the dripping water. So it could just be that, but I think there is an implication that maybe she picked up drinking, I don't know. And then, yeah, she does the Todoroki. It does feel very My Hero inspired here with the Shoto Todoroki backstory. She snaps one day and goes for his eyes, right? She tries to gouge them out, obviously failed, but yeah, that was kind of the final straw. And then tragically, you know, you have the build up. It kind of reminded me a lot of Samura approaching that door, hoping to not see, you know, Iori in a sorry state on the other side. You see the water dripping, and then he opens the door and his mum's in the bath, and there's a note saying, "I'm sorry," which, yeah, we all know what this means. I don't have to explain it. So now he's lost both his parents. I don't blame his mum in the slightest, but from these pages we can see that he turned 9, right, on the day that his dad died. That's what this page is kind of saying, right? He turned 9 that day, and we can see Kunishige being given his birthday cake, and in that moment he's sort of going, I'm gonna do what Dad couldn't. I'm gonna protect you, and I'm gonna turn this around. Yeah, I'm gonna look after you and make sure you don't have to go through that anymore. And I feel like, unfortunately, to an extent myself included, but unfortunately for a lot of people, I feel like this is one of those ones that a lot of people are going to be able to relate to in a lot of ways, because there's a lot of situations that kind of come up where children who are way too young feel the need to take on the responsibility of adults, right? So I get obviously what Kunishige is feeling, but he's 9. It's not his job to look after his mum. It's not his job to, bear the burden of what his dad left behind. And I think that shows really well in this scene, because it's like he takes it upon himself. And then you get the imagery of Kunishige blowing out the candle. Now, there's lots of fire image. I mean, the chapter's called Fire. There's lots of fire imagery in this chapter, all of it associated with the good parts of Kunishige's life. So even from chapter 1 of the series, where he's forging with Chihiro, happy memory. And then here again, the good side of his dad, teaching him how to become a blacksmith, fire. And then in stark contrast to that, you have the PTSD of water, food, and alcohol being, the kind of the opposite. And obviously water being known to put out fire, it does make a lot of sense. It's a very good contrast. But here again, this is meant to be a happy day. It's his 9th birthday. He has the fire on the candle, on the cake. And when he then says, I'll always be there for you, he blows out the candle, which kind of is meant to symbolize his flame being extinguished. And this is the moment where he kind of properly goes down that route of depression and trauma, because he's taken on the burden of everything that's happened for himself. I don't blame him. His mum can't handle it. His dad's gone. I get why he's done it. Again, I think a lot of people will relate, to an extent, myself included. So it is a very hard-hitting chapter, but I really like that symbolism of him blowing out the candle and kind of extinguishing his flame. And then, yeah, you have his mum snapping and then passing away. Skip forward a bit, he became friends with the gang, Azami, Shiba. I'm happy we got to see Azami, though. That is a nice little positive. But Azami and Shiba and Chiaki, none of them went to school. Good parallel with Chihiro and Hirohiko. At least I don't think they went to school. I don't know, they seem like kind of rebellious teens, I guess. And at first, he didn't really care for them at all. He just wanted to try and fill a void. And then obviously over time, as humans naturally will, he began to naturally care for them. And that really scared him because obviously, he has bad experiences with getting attached. So yeah, and then we see he disappeared for what I think 3 weeks, it said. Now, this could just be a spontaneous spat of depression. I mean, if you look at this panel, if I was to describe this panel in one word, I'd say that looks like depression. It's a mess. He's just lying there, not doing anything. Apparently has been this way for a couple weeks, not reached out to anyone. He's not been eating, as we can see later on from the half-eaten pot noodle. Again, this is something that's common with Kunishige. Kind of feel bad for calling him a bum when he was like lying on the floor starving at the beginning of this flashback, because we thought he was just a jobber, he couldn't cook for himself. But no, it seems like an actual trauma response. Like he cannot actually like eat. Whether it's conscious or subconscious it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like that is a trauma response, is when there's not someone there to look after him and provide for him, like Chiaki does, and then like Chihiro does later on. He's not going to take care of himself, and you can see by the state of his house exactly how that looks. I did have an interesting theory that the reason he disappeared is because of the weather. It was raining outside, and you can see that the bins are all piled up by the front door, so it seems like he doesn't really want to go outside at all, and this might have been brought on by the rain, which again would be because of his PTSD, because of the trauma. And so Chiaki comes over to make sure that he's okay after so long, kind of has a little, oh, should I actually go up there or not? What if he just wants to be alone? But then eventually does get invited in, out of the rain, and she brings him some food and some fireworks. Yeah, she cooks for him, and now this, I think, is my favorite part. We have this amazingly drawn panel of Chiaki basically just lighting the stove. And there's so much to unpack from this, because first of all, this is literally meant to symbolize her kind of rekindling his flame. All right, this is her bringing the fire back into his life. Another good experience, more fire. And then also this panel, I'm not gonna lie, looks like an eye, right? If you look at all the kind of like white streaks, which is meant to be the lighting, but if you know what an eye looks like up close, it's kind of like the pupil where the flame is, and then the iris around it. And then of course you could go even further with that and say it's an eye to a flame, which of course is the Rokuhira thing, right? With the Rokuhira eyes, you forge and the flames, they burn your eyes, and then you get stronger and you get better. Could also be what that's symbolizing, because that's my first thought when I saw it. Looks like an eye. But yeah, She cooks for him, and of course then we notice that he hasn't been eating, and then we see the panel of the smashed plate on the floor with all the food, so it is, again, trauma response, but Chiaki's here to look after him. There's that fire. He feels comfortable right now, so he eats. It's delicious, and slowly but surely he kind of wanes off that response he was having, right? And he manages to eat a whole meal. So it is meant to represent Chiaki kind of, reigniting his flame, which is really, again, so much to unpack from this one chapter, and it's exactly why I'm happy we got it all at the same time. I've also somehow managed to do this video all in one take, more or less, which is pretty impressive, but it's just, that's how easy to analyze this chapter is, so I really like it. Again, the romance at the end kind of comes in. We see a really nice panel of Chiaki just ruffling Kunishige's hair as he's crying, eating the food. Love a good food theme in anime manga. It's always great. Shout out Sanji. Yeah, the rain then stops, so they go outside, light up the sparklers. More fire, more lighting of flames, and they just run, and we get this beautiful double spread of them playing outside in the dark. I have also noticed there is always a contrast. It's whenever we get those flames, it's always on a kind of very dark or almost just pitch black background, because that would be the state he's in when he's forging, right? It'd be in a dark shed, the flame. So I think he's accustomed to darkness and having a flame, fire, and then I think he doesn't like broad daylight and, you know, clearly water, rain, alcohol. I imagine we see the beer cans a lot, and food. So yeah, that's the chapter, and again, so much to kind of unpack from it. I think the symbolism and imagery especially is great. I have a few more points to add, which is, this might be me looking into things. The sparklers look like they might resemble something of a centipede. Could be something there. Maybe not, who knows. But yeah, I really like the way that we've explored kind of depression and PTSD through this chapter. It holds a very nice parallel to the way Kunishige was raised, to the way that he raised Chihiro. Obviously, those parallels will continue to grow, so I don't want to go into them too much, because I'm sure there's more to be taken from that later on. But there is some very strong parallels there. Chihiro obviously filling that role that Chiaki did for him, and kind of kept that flame going. And then, well, technically it was Hokuto, but Yura was the one who then snuffed out Kunishige's flame for good, and ironically lit a flame under Chihiro, right? Romance towards the end is simple. It's not complex, right? It's realistic. It's black and white, literally. I think what I would say about this chapter that I really enjoyed is, previously the most emotional and heartfelt moment in Bachi for me was the Iori Samura situation. I'm not trying to compare it and put one down, alright? I'm just going to make this comparison to explain my point, in that the Samura Iori thing is kind of like, you're told the context, you're kind of explained everything, and you go, oh, that's sad, and you feel sad, right? And obviously parent-daughter or parent-child, there's an element of relatability there, but I think if you take this chapter, 126, in isolation, and someone who's never knows nothing about Bachi read it for the first time, you would never know that it was about a big sorcery fight. There's no sorcery, it's just real life, you know? Like, it's a very real situation that he's found himself in, with very real responses, right? So it looks like a slice of life almost. And I feel for that reason, whether you have gone through any of the kind of like stuff that Kunishige has, whether that be specifically any form of abuse, losing a loved one, whether that just be depression in general or PTSD in general. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I think especially young people, do struggle with a lot of those things, myself included to certain extents, which again, not going into, but there are parts of this that I strongly relate to, and I'm sure that is the case for a lot of people for whatever reason. And even if you can't relate to any of it, it's one of those things that it's like, okay, well, you actually have a really good relationship with your parents, right? And you still have both your parents, and that can be great. Having that then lets you look at the alternative and realize how sad it is. So I feel like for everybody all round, regardless of your experience, it's a very relatable chapter in terms of, you know, the human experience and our innate emotions and attachments. So the Samura Iori thing is quite a strange context, right? It's not a context that you'd ever find in real life, at least usually. It's not as easy to relate to as something like this, which is so grounded in real life, right? This happens, it does, and it's all very real, and yeah, I think that's why it kind of just moved everybody. That's pretty much all I have to say on it from now. I might do a deeper dive later on, but the final thing that I kind of want to bring up, and this might just be a complete shot in the dark, it might be a Hokuzono who never thought of any of that kind of moment. I wonder if Chiaki helped him eventually, like, overcome some of these things that he was worried about, because we know he doesn't control the exact abilities that the blades gain, but there could be some symbolism in the fact that Kumayuri, Banquet, Alcohol, Sake, Kuragumo or Cloud Gouger, controlling the weather, rain. We literally see when they kind of give the, you know, the quote about Ibuki, it shows a panel of it raining. Tobumune, Suzaku, fire, Enten, fish, water, hell, Magatsumi, darkness. You know, like, Subaru potentially food, given that he's a chef, you know? Like, there might be something there. I'm just saying, it's ironic that he's got abilities in the blade that take it off to alcohol, rain, water, fire, all those things. So yeah, but it's a great kind of contrast. And again, getting this all in one chapter was amazing. I wouldn't have it any other way. I think it hits really hard. I think every message that that Hokuzono wanted to convey has been successfully conveyed. I feel like asking for anything more than that would only take from my experience, because you'd see it coming. You know, you start sad backstory. You've read manga. You know it's gonna end in tragedy, right? Yeah, it's just great. I'm gonna touch on this very final point incredibly briefly. There is some controversy. Some controversy about this whole fridging and so-called misogyny issue. I'm not really feeling in the mood to discuss this at the moment, because obviously everyone is entitled to their own opinion about it, and I have absolutely no desire to try and change your opinions on it. All right, your opinions are your own, and I don't have a problem with that either way. It's just that I personally, I don't want to say that I don't have a problem so much as I don't have a problem because I can't wrap my head around it. I don't understand it. I'm very open to trying to understand. I've been asking questions to people whenever it does come up, trying to understand, but it's just not clicking with me. But yeah, if that's something that I'm gonna see people bringing up, then I'm just gonna direct you towards Kalkan's video on the matter. I watched it. I think it sums up my thoughts as well, basically. So if you want to know what I think, go watch that video, because I largely agree with it for the most part. Yeah, that's it. I'm done. I don't know, this chapter, again, no jokes in this video, really. It was quite serious. It really hits home with a lot of people. And it might be my favorite chapter yet. I think it might just be the best one, and I can't wait to see it animated, because we're all gonna cry like crazy. All right, peace, I guess.